And welcome everybody to the PCS Like a Pro show. I'm your host as always, Megan Harless, and we've got a really great episode for you today. I'm really excited to dive into that. But before we get started, I just want to remind everybody it's order season. So many people are coming down on orders right now. So as soon as you get your orders, it's just really important that you remember that you log into DPS. If you haven't set up an account before, you're going to need to set up an account, but log into DPS and get your move set up. Even if you decide to do a PPM, a do-it-yourself and move yourself, you still need to set it up on DPS as a PPM. You need to let the military know how you are moving, and there's extra forms you have to sign and fill out to be sure that you get paid for that as well. If you decide we're not going to set it up on DPS, we're going to move ourselves, you really risk the chance of not being reimbursed. So make sure you get your moves set up. If you're moving after May 15th, don't freak out. You may not get a mover assigned until probably the March, April timeframe. So it's not going to happen instantly as if you were moving, next month kind of deal. So don't freak out that there's going to be a delay for that. But as soon as you get your orders, get your move set up, get your shipment in that queue. So when they start booking those summer moves, you're there and you can get assigned a company and get the dates that you want. So just a reminder, because everybody I know is coming down on orders, including us, that we're still patiently waiting for our orders, but we're in that group as well. Make sure you set up your move. So today, I'm really excited that we get to talk with my friend Amy. If you don't know Amy, you're about to learn who Amy is and the amazingness that she is, because every time I talk to her, I feel like I walk away with the encouragement and the motivation to go run a marathon and change the world. That's just, you need those people in your lives, and I'm very thankful that Amy is one of them for me. So welcome to the show, Amy. And if you could just take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me. Y'all just heard Megan give you the 411 on setting up your military move and all that stuff. And I always tell Megan she's like the ninja master of this stuff. She knows more about what is in those moving manuals and official communications from the DoD than anyone I have ever. I think she has it memorized. And so I'm just always super impressed to hear her talk about that stuff and what great advice that is. So I'm a military spouse as well. I'm an Army spouse. My husband is currently in the Alaska Army National Guard, which means blessedly our PCSing days are over, but that has not always been the case. We were active duty for about 11 years, moved many times, hither and thither across the nation, across town, every kind of move you can imagine, we have done it. And so I sympathize with those of you coming down on orders, and I know that you have 100% totally got this as well. So it's a challenging time of the world to be moving still, but you guys know what you're doing and you can do this. So that's just some encouragement for me up front. So I said I'm an Army spouse, and I said we're in U.S. Army National Guard in Alaska. So that's where I'm coming to you from today. It is pretty early in the morning, and I will be nursing my coffee. See, Mama needs coffee. It's right there for this conversation. So you'll forgive me for that. So in 2016, we got out of active duty Army and moved up here to Alaska, sight unseen, because this is where we wanted to live. And I was just sort of done with the shenanigans of big Army, as was my husband. And so we thought we'd try something new. And we moved up here, in part because he was experiencing some fallout from his service in Afghanistan, brain injury, PTSD. You guys know the drill. And we were curious to see if spending more time outside or in a closer proximity to a nature setting would help him recover from that stuff. And since we could move anywhere, why not move to Alaska? So we did.
I have a lot of questions with the whole why not Alaska piece.
Well, I got a flair for the dramatic.
We're going to get to that here in a minute. You threw a lot at us of your story. We're going to break it down a little bit. So before moving to Alaska, can you tell us a little bit about what military family life was like then? I know you're a National Guard family. Where did you live? Some National Guard families, PCS. Did you have any of that in there? What kind of was that op tempo like for your family at that time?
Yeah, so we are National Guard now. We actually transitioned into this from the active duty Army.
Mhm.
And so we were just a very typical active duty Army family. You know, we did his first duty station was at Fort Lewis, and then you go home to Fort Benning, you know, cool your heels there for a hot second, roll the Army dice, and got stationed up at Fort Campbell, where we lived for way too long. Fort Campbell's and you know, in terms of living in Clarksville, Tennessee, and in Oak Grove, I loved the area actually,
Mhm.
just plenty. Land between the lakes is beautiful. We found lots of things to love about Clarksville itself. The 101st and Fort Campbell, as anyone who's ever been part of that off tempo knows, is a challenge. There are, you know, they're in and out the door all the time. Everyone's always getting ready to go again. And once you get pulled into Fort Campbell, you're kind of there forever. And so he, you know, the view, like looking forward, was we'll get stationed somewhere else and then we'll come back to Fort
Mhm.
Campbell. And I really didn't want to do that because of that op tempo, you know, and the expectations on our troops in that kind of an op tempo, at least at that time. This was in 2015. And so, you know, we were still very much in and out of like doing that high op tempo in and out of multiple theaters. And so it was a situation of wanting to cool our heels a little bit. And so the decision to get out had a lot to do with that,
Mhm.
to, you know, take a break. So what is Army National Guard life compared to that? Well, we're a traditional Guard family. He actually at this point works full time for the Guard as a civilian DoD employee. It's called a Guard Tech. So they wear the uniform and they work in the Guard unit where they drill typically, and then they are back drilling there doing the traditional weekend warrior thing on the weekends, and they're way more than 2 weeks a year. So um, that is a lie. So you know that's our op tempo now, and it looks like you know trainings, long trainings now and then, but it's way simpler than it was before, and does not include any PCSs. Although you know there are lots of different kinds of guard status. Those listening to this who are in the Guard full time know that yes, you can PCS with the National Guard. Yes, typically you're assigned to a state. You could always PCS to a different state. If you are an Army Reserve member, those folks look in, you know, from a practical standpoint, a lot like the National Guard, but they do actually PCS and can be assigned to
Mhm.
reserve units across the country. And so PCSing is a part of Guard life for the, you know, active Guard and for the reserve, but it is not a part of traditional weekend. There are like a lot of acronyms for this, by the way, so I won't use them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just a quick plug. So near the end of February, March timeframe, we're going to have a National Guard spouse on with us who's going to help us dive into what life is and to help understand the difference between Guard and Reserve and the struggles that they face as well. So make sure you tune in if you're considering
Yes.
maybe that transition but don't know what life is like. Julie's going to walk us through what life
Oh,
is really like.
I'm assuming you're talking about Julie Provost. She's awesome.
Julie Eshelman.
Oh, Eshelman. Okay, well,
Eshelman.
Julie's Provost also awesome, also doing the Guard thing. But yeah, so that's
Yeah.
two Julies who are experts on this.
Yes, yes. But I think that's, you know, a conversation that we don't have a lot is what is Guard life like?
No, we
What
don't.
struggles do Guard families have? You
So
know,
I want to just say real quickly, if you recognize my name, it's probably because you read military.com, where I'm our executive editor. And that's not really what we're talking about today, but because I experienced this Guard life craziness and found there were no resources about it. We actually do have some stuff in writing on this now, like things you didn't know about transitioning to TRICARE and that kind of thing, based off of my own experience and then doing research like what the crap just happened, you know? And so we could really dial that in. So anyway,
yeah,
another research.
yeah, no, absolutely. And we'll get some of those links after the show. I'll go dig them up and we'll put them in the comments so you guys can go back and look at them because they are very much needed. And going back to your story, the high op tempo of Fort Campbell, I think there's a couple of places within our military community that have those locations that experience that high op tempo. And you touched on it some. Was the high op tempo one of the main reasons that led to the decision of let's transfer, let's move to Alaska. And then like, why Alaska? When you say, you know, we could go anywhere, so why not Alaska? Why not Florida? Why not an exotic island? Why not some place where it's warm and sunny with like a beach?
Such good
Help
questions.
us explain, understand that some.
I have like in retrospect, the decision made a lot of sense at the time. It's the dead of winter right now, so I'm like, what? So we wanted to live somewhere that didn't have a lot of people, like a lot of traffic and that kind of thing. When you're dealing with somebody who is experiencing what was really at that point undiagnosed traumatic brain injury and PTSD, I mean, we just were seeing symptoms. We were not seeing solutions, and nobody had put a label on it. And labels can be harmful or helpful, but they're helpful when they help you guide to possible solutions. So we were really at that very like dark period where you don't know what's going on. We knew we had really liked living in Washington State. We liked the mountains, we liked the weather. We did not like the traffic. Anyone who's lived at Fort Lewis or Joint Base Lewis McChord, or even in the Seattle area at the Navy bases there, knows that there's a lot of traffic. I-5 sort of like a tiny slice of hell. And so we did not want to experience that again. But people we had talked to in the military who had lived in Fort Lewis and in Alaska had told us that living up here was very similar in a lot of ways to Fort Lewis, colder, obviously, and you know, not even a slice of the traffic and the population. So that was a major consideration. You know, the op tempo was more, it was less about the op tempo itself and more about the injuries that we couldn't even begin to address when paired with the op tempo. And so when you, I mean, like I said, they're undiagnosed, right? So now you have to go through this like gauntlet of getting diagnoses and trying to figure out how to treat them and trying to figure out what works and trying to get your unit to give you time to do that. It's just, it wasn't sustainable. And it wasn't something that we could reasonably do and in a way that really was going to impact him and was going to fix or even address the challenges that he was experiencing through those things. He had been in Afghanistan in 2009, 2010, had been blown up a bunch in a striker. And if you were ever in a unit with a striker in 2010, you know that that was a big problem then. And so the way those strikers were constructed basically meant that if you hit an IED, that your striker is going to be full of people who are no longer alive because of the overpressure in the striker. And then you're all going to have brain injuries. So those who do make it. And so that was that, you know, but that people didn't understand that. We didn't understand that. And so we were just really scratching around looking for a way to address this. And so again, why Alaska? Well, lack of population, veteran friendly, nature, and something we thought we could do. And you know, like when you move with the military a lot, I mean, how many of us have moved sight unseen somewhere? Like it happens a lot. I'd never been to Georgia when I moved there, and they were like, "You're going to Georgia," and I was like, "Okay," you know. So it wasn't. I mean, it sounds very dramatic, especially to a civilian population, but from a military perspective, it's like, I mean, I just thought of it as another duty station. And with that in mind, like if I hate it, we leave it. You know, like that's not that hard to do. I do that all the time, you know. In fact, I do it not nearly as much as I wanted to. So it was not as crazy as it sounds, especially crazy sounding to a civilian population. For me, it was like, okay, what's next?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And with our civilian population really not understanding how the military life works, with us being at a remote location right now, when we moved in and met our neighbors, it's like, this is our 10th PCS. It's just like, why do you move so many times? Like, why are you here? You know, for them not understanding it. And I think for the military, we can kind of have that mindset that when we move someplace that's not related to a PCS, like we understand, like we can leave if we want. This doesn't have to be forever. Like we've done it before. We've packed our home up every 2 years. Like we can do it again if we need to. And knowing that it's not forever, it's for as long as we want it to be.
And I'll tell you, Alaska is full of people who like, I would like a minority population here is from here, right? So if you're an Alaskan native, you're from here. So a member of the indigenous population, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are somebody whose family has been here for decades, you're from here. But Alaska didn't have a lot of people from the lower 48 move up here until the 1930s. That wasn't that long
Yeah.
ago. And so you're talking maybe two generations of folks living here, and everyone else is from somewhere else. And if they
Yeah.
don't like it, they leave,
Yeah.
and so that's very, very common here. I have no street cred because I've only been here since 2016, but I have more street cred than some people because they just got here last year, and they're not connected with the military at all. They just decided they wanted to move to Alaska. It's like weirdly normal.
I love hearing that. So, in all this big process, you made this big change and this big move to Alaska, and you talk a lot about outdoors and nature and how it's kind of like a therapy of sorts. So, what made you decide to start this? We need to be outdoors as part of your healing. And then I know for those who don't know, you're about to learn, Amy does it for a certain amount of time each day. How did you decide how much time each day to make it worth it being outdoors?
So we moved up here for my husband, right? And
Mm.
and and honestly, it was because we had started doing some camping as a family at Fort Campbell in the Land Between the Lakes area, and I had observed that when we did that, he seemed a lot calmer, right?
Mm.
Like we had a nice time. When you experience joy or you have good feelings while doing something, you want to do it more. That's just human nature. And so I had noticed that we really were better when we were outside. And I was not an outdoor kind of person. Like I had not done a lot of camping. I did not grow up doing that. And so that was a big change for me. But I was like, all right, like we're doing this. I've got two sons, like let's go.
Mhm.
And in fact, for those of you who are familiar with JC Eckhart, she's a longtime military spouse columnist, has done a lot of spouse advice columns and that kind of thing over time, and is now specializing in military transition. You can find her doing that on military.com. But at the time, she was doing spouse stuff, and she she gave me some really great advice, which was if you don't go with them, they're going to leave you behind.
Mhm.
And I really didn't like that idea. So I decided I was going to become an outdoor person. So we move up here and I'm all like, all right, we're an outdoor person now. Let's do this thing. And then it got winter time and it was raining and it was not my ideal outdoor situation. And I am from a beach. Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
In
Florida, like you could have
California.
had Florida and stuff. Like,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, we did actually look at moving to California, like in the great, like where we couldn't go kind of thing, and could not afford that. So,
Mhm.
like who can afford to live in where I'm from, Santa Cruz anymore? Anyway, total sidebar. Um, so I'm like sitting in my house waiting for Alaska to be awesome. And we got to a point, it was literally Memorial Day weekend. So all y'all are out there at the beach and, stoking
Mhm.
up some sun. And I'm sitting on my porch reading Harry Potter in the rain. Okay. And I'm like, what the crap is happening? I'm
Yeah.
like wearing a hat. So I realized in that moment that I had like gone through this whole thing to move to Alaska to be sort of outdoorsy. And I hadn't like done that. I'd just done the first part. And if I was going to hang out and wait for Alaska to be perfect for me, that wasn't going to work out very well because Alaska doesn't, like, the weather doesn't work that way. It doesn't do what you want, which is
Yeah.
really annoying, but true. And so I am me, which means that your girl needs a challenge to do something. Like I have to have a goal and like I'm going to do this, like a streak. Okay. So like, all right, what happens if I just go outside every day between right now and Labor Day? It's like 99 days. What happens if I
Mhm.
do that? Like, would I like it here more? Would I like being outside more? So I tried that. Like literally there was a day that it was pouring rain and I went on my porch and I stood there like this with my cup of coffee and I looked around. I was out there for maybe 5 minutes. Okay. But I did. I went outside every day and at the end of that, I was like, well, that was kind of awesome. That's a great new habit. I should
Mhm.
keep doing that. But I'm going to need I realized after that rain standing situation that I was going to need some rules because we were about to go into wintertime and there was going to be a lot of like check. Okay, back inside. So did some research, and I realized that there was at the time very limited information on what is called dosage of being outside. You know, what dosage is good for nature every day. But it sort of indicated that between 15 minutes and 45 minutes was ideal. And so I was like, well, 20 is a nice midpoint, first of all. Second of all, I think 20 minutes is something I will actually do, which is really important when you're picking a new habit because, you know, why do habits fail? Well, because we're like, I'm going to lose 100 pounds. And then that's like a huge thing and it's hard to imagine. And you're not going to actually go to the gym every day. Okay. So I picked 20 minutes. I'll actually do that. And so starting September 1st, 2017, I started going outside every day for 20 minutes, no matter what. My goal was do this for a year. And there were days I almost forgot and I did like, oh my gosh, I haven't gone outside today and I'm taking a walk in the dark. Okay. But more often than not, because I had decided to do this, I scheduled it into my day. And it just became a part of my day. So that was over 1,600 days ago. I'm still doing that. It has become
for those that didn't catch it really quick, 1,600 days ago is when she started this. So she's kept that streak for that long of every day going out for 20 minutes a day.
And I will tell you, like, there are days that it ain't great. It's, you know, and that's especially on the top of my mind right now because it's the winter in Alaska. So, for example, we had a humongous windstorm a couple of weeks ago. Okay, we're talking like, imagine being hurricane winds for 3 days. And that was not that great for spending time outside, but I figured out how to do it. We kind of like blew around our yard, for lack of a better description. There was like a little bit of time in there that I hid behind the wind block of my car. You know, you got like when you have wind like that, stuff is flying through the air. It was like 16 below wind chill. You know, like you should be wearing goggles. Okay. It's not tropical. Let's put it that way. But we did it, you know, and I would never have done that if I wasn't logging time every day. I'd be like in my house, protected. Okay. Yeah. But I went outside and I experienced what that was like because I have this habit. You know, other days are fantastic. Yesterday, it snowed like 5 inches. Okay. And my yard and the woods behind my yard, we live right next to a high school and it's a cross country course, looks like Narnia. It is magical. Okay. And when it snows like that, everything gets really quiet. Yeah. And so I went out into the woods and I was like, this is like a dream. This makes all that other crap worth it. And I was not out there for more than 30 minutes. I mean, maybe 35 minutes. I had something in the oven. I'm sorry to report. I had to come home. But if I could have stayed out there a couple hours, I would have. And I'm not sure that I would have gone for a 30-minute. In this case, I went to put my skis on and went back there. First of all, I would never in a million years own skis and just pop into the woods if I wasn't having my outdoor habit. Okay. And I would never have been out there in like 5 inches of new snow, you know, half mile from my house. So this habit has been something that I have to power through sometimes, but it also has magical moments. And it has changed my life. It has had just like a humongous number of things that make me a better person, a humongous number of things that have made my military life and my life with my military spouse better. Because we go outside every day, we spend more time together because we do that together, not every day, but often. And when you are away from your TV and away from doing the dishes and just focused on being outside, you have conversations with your spouse that you would not have if you were on your inside life. And I can tell you that because I've had them and I can compare and contrast. It's not something that has happened inside the way we are able to communicate outside. I love where I live because I have gone outside every day, and because every day, 1,600 days, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of days, guys. You got time for stuff in there. Yeah. So among the things that I've done, because I was looking for ways to spend time outside that were not just my boring walk in the woods, I got involved in a community run. I started attending like these little festivals in my town, like any outdoor activity you see advertised in your current hometown, wherever you're stationed. I would go to that, whatever that was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you're there. So you meet people, and now you have new friends who maybe are civilians. Maybe that's new for you. That was new for me. And so I have the ability to like where we are because
Mm-hmm.
I'm connected to it in a way that I never would have been had I just been staying home. And I can tell you that because one, we were stationed places that I didn't do this. And two, I had a whole year here where I was not connected to anyone or anything. I had no idea what was going on in my town. Did not know anything about it. And I was not involved because I was not spending time there. And
Right.
so that has enriched my life in ways that I can't even articulate well. And I'll tell you, that would be true even if we were moving.
Yeah.
I would be more sorry to leave, right? Because I was connected, but I think that connection is worth it. It's worth the
That
risk.
definitely helps. So when we think about getting outside, a lot of times we think about like it's an exertion activity, like we're running, we're hiking, we're going to get
Sure.
sweaty and yucky. What are ways that people can get outside without having that big like my
Yeah.
friends send me like that that joke like before you marry somebody find out if their family wakes up and does 5Ks on Thanksgiving or if they
Right.
sit at home and make mimosas or something, and so like
Yeah.
those folks that like say, I want to get outside, I want to do outside, but I'm not going to go run the 5K with my neighbor. Like, what are activities that they can do to kind of start that process of getting out there when they're not that athletic energy exertion type of person?
So I get asked a lot, like, what counts as outside? Do I have to like go on
Mm-hmm.
a walk? Okay, outside is outside. Like, are you outside? Then you're outside.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. Now I know there are some gray areas. So, just like if you're in like a garage with the garage door open, is that outside? Because you're like express air. If you're in like a covered porch, like a mesh porch,
Mm-hmm.
is that outside? Okay, so these questions do exist. All right. First of all, I will say you have to decide what outside is for yourself. Okay, like
Mm-hmm.
honestly say, does this feel like being in nature to me, or does this feel like being outside in fresh air? Then sure, that's outside. Okay. So, what are activities? Well, I mean, if outside is outside and you don't have to go for a walk, the sky is the limit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we put in like the world's simplest little fire pit in my backyard that, we sit around that when the weather, when we have time or in the evening or whatever. I spend a whole lot of days when the weather is nice sitting on my porch drinking coffee. I often work outside. That's not like the best outdoor time I've ever had, right? I'm not like hearing the birds super well, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
outside. Um, I like I said, love to go to these outdoor festivals in my little cute little town. So, you're like taking a carriage ride or you're looking at the decorations or whatever. Um, in the winter, because it's cold here, it helps to be moving. Yes, it does. That is an important thing because otherwise you freezing. So I do recommend motion for but it doesn't have to be running. Like you don't have to be a 5K person, walk around your block, you know? Um, I am a fan of the coffee, as I have mentioned. I take a lot of walks holding one. Just like walking through go get a coffee, take a walk in town. Um, let's see, what are some other ways? Fishing, people like, I know maybe fishing's not your thing, but it sure is stationary. Sit, forget the pole, sit and look at the water.
Yes.
Like that's what people who are fishing are really doing. Let's be honest. I'm not a fisher person, so I can say that. Like you're creating plenty of people fish and throw back, right? It's just the process. You're creating an excuse to stand there by water. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Take a book, make that your excuse. Um, my pandemic purchase was a hot tub. So I did my outdoor time without a hot tub for years. Okay, 3 years. But then I got a hot tub, and boy, does that heavily feature in my outdoor time now. So there are days we sit in the hot tub. That's it. That's all. That's the
Yeah.
outdoor time. You know. Um, so really, the sky's the limit. Anything that you can imagine doing inside, you can take outside instead
Mm-hmm.
in the right weather.
Right.
The weather is a challenge. It is. So The next thing to think about is what kind of gear you own. This doesn't have to be an expensive exercise, but depending on where you live, you may find that your life is better if your rain jacket is nice. And by nice, I mean doesn't soak through right away. Has some ventilation. If you live in the South and you have a thick rain jacket, you're just going to cook inside that sucker, right? So you want to make sure it breathes a little, or isn't too heavy. And so these are things to think about. It is easier to spend time outside if you're comfortable. People don't like going out. I find that one of the reasons the top reason people say they can't go outside in the winter or don't want to do it or whatever has to do with discomfort. Same, me too. So how do you address that? Well, if you really want to, you can. Oh, my bones hurt in the winter, or I experience a lot of asthma in the cold. Well, then a great cold activity for you would be not a lot of movement, right? And if you're really, really cold, like as a person, and believe me, I can say that because I am, get a bigger jacket. I cannot believe I waited like 2-3 years to buy a bigger jacket. Okay. So I'm like, listen, my husband owns he's like any army guy. Like, why do you have so much crap? What is this? Okay. So he owns like 1,000 jackets. All right. So one day I'm like, I can't find my jacket. I put on one of his. I'm like, what is this? Why don't I have one of these? It's like a magical moment. So buy the bigger jacket, spend a little money. It doesn't have to be a lot, but if you put some thought into it and invest in just a little bit of gear, you could really make being outside something that you actually want to do, because now you're not freezing your butt off.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm now adding a outdoor fire pit and a hot tub to the list of requirements for our future home at wherever it is we PCS this summer, just so I can make outdoor much more enjoyable. In the process of all of this, you started your own, do we call it a company, or it's a company?
Yeah, right? It's a company now.
Humans Outside. Tell us about Humans Outside, what led to this, and why it's important.
Well, so I actually started this just as a blog back at Fort Campbell when we were, when I was like just learning to just go outside, and I wanted sort of a place just to blog about it. I mean, it's like 2014. So blogging was still like very much a thing. And I'm a writer, so writers write. And then when we moved out here and I sort of started looking at this spending time outside every day challenge that I created for myself, I decided to resurrect that project a little bit. And mostly just on Instagram. So one of the things I do is, and it was created as accountability for me, by me, for me. Okay. I put a photo of my outdoor time every day on Instagram at Humans Outside. And I tagged with Humans Outside 365. I just wanted a way to see all the pictures that I like, all of my outdoor time. And so that has since grown into, because again, writers write, into a big project where I now have the Humans Outside podcast, where I interview people about the experience of spending time outside or building life around going outside every day. That means I'm talking to experts who are people who are research what the benefits of going into nature. I've recently had an expert on who talks about seasonal affective disorder, which is aka SAD, which is sad. That's that feeling like it's dark and I'm kind of bummed. It's actual diagnosable disorder. It's more than just being kind of bummed in the dark, but the ways to sort of not be bummed in the dark, the treatments are the same. So he talks about that. And I've had, Olympians on who talk about their training and about how spending a time outside has enriched them. And just sort of this whole host of things that is so interesting to me. That's why I do it, because I really am interested to talk to these people. And so this season 5, we're talking about nearby nature. So how to spend time outside without having to think about being outside as going to the Grand Canyon. We think about going outside as sort of this thing, like this event. But you can experience the same benefits of spending time in nature on your back porch. And so we talk a lot about that and the practicalities of that and where to do it and how to make it better. A lot of what you're asking about today. And so I do that Humans Outside podcast. And then also I have the Humans Outside challenge, because enough people ask me about how to make this a part of their life. That I sat down and thought about, just human psychology a little bit and about how I work and about how my friends work. And it's helpful to have encouragement. It's helpful to have advice, and it's helpful to have a little carrot at the end of the stick. And so if you sign up for the Humans Outside Challenge, you can sign up for a variety of levels. I've got decals. If you finish 365 days, sign up, get one of these little decals, bragging rights. If you are the kind of person who really needs a medal, like I am the 5K family. Okay, I'm sorry. Actually, my family isn't the 5K family, just me. Yeah. So I've gotten that, you can order a medal. I've got, it's called a buff, you might know it as a neck gaiter. It was like all the COVID rage. Well, they're useful for other things too, by the way. You can order one of those. And so that's the Humans Outside Challenge. And you can see more about that on humansoutside.com.
Yeah, we're going to get all of those links. And as soon as we get done, I'm going to go track them down and get them dropped into the comments for you all. Because I absolutely love being able to go and see Amy's posts and her pictures and that inspiration and encouragement of like, go get outside. The other day I forced all of us to just get outside and it was 50 degrees, which to Amy is like a heat wave. But here in East Texas, it was like cold. It was like the middle of winter. It was horrible. And it was just like, we need a little fresh air. We went and took a walk outside. My daughter did some rollerblading. But getting outside really does, it has that therapeutic piece to it that really does kind of help with that feeling better. And so I love being able to see your journey on it and see that encouragement to others and hearing all of that other good things that we just need to know about and to help get us out there. I want to give you a minute too, because I know your husband has his own company that does more outdoor stuff, because I love knowing you guys as like the family that does outdoor things and seeing your journey and seeing how you take your kids and make them a part of it as well. Because it's not just a thing you do. It's not just a thing you and your husband do, but you make it a family thing. So if you want to take a minute and pitch your husband's company and what he does too.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, he's in the National Guard and he works for the National Guard, but he also has a company and / nonprofit called Remedy Alpine. Remedy Alpine really just looks to take veterans into the backcountry. So that would be on overnight expeditions, single day hikes, people just like himself. In fact, he is here right now in my basement working because it is when, it's 6:30 in the morning, right? But typically on Wednesdays, he is out climbing a mountain in Anchorage with a bunch of veterans. And so the weather here is very, very icy, and they did not do that today. But that's every Wednesday morning. He's out of here at 4:15 to get out there and do this before work hike with a bunch of veterans. And that's a function of Remedy Alpine. So you can learn more at remedyalpine.org. And this is, it's a veteran serving nonprofit created by veterans for veterans. And they're really impacting specifically veterans in Alaska. There are a lot of organizations that bring veterans to Alaska. Highest cost for those organizations isn't what they do here, it's getting here. It's very expensive, obviously, to travel in and out of Alaska because it's so far away. Alaska is more than twice the size of Texas. Sorry, Texans. It doesn't look that way on the map, but it is. And it is, let's just put it this way. When we drove from Clarksville, Tennessee, to Anchorage, Alaska, the halfway point was the border of Washington and Idaho. Okay, that's how far away it is. Really far. So, his organization, as a result of that, really focuses on Alaska veterans because Alaska actually has the highest per capita veteran population in the United States. It's about 13% of the population here are veterans. They move up here for the same reasons we were talking about earlier: nature, no traffic, right? But the problem is when it gets dark outside and when the weather's bad, all those things we were talking about before, super easy, stay home on your couch, not go out and connect. And now that solitude you were seeking by being in nature has turned to isolation and loneliness, all of those things that we know are linked to depression and therefore put you at risk for suicide. And so really trying to stem the tide on that. And this is just a small piece of that, and that's called Remedy Alpine. I'm looking at the comments, okay, by the way, and I got to address the spider business. My inside voice, spiders. Okay.
From Destin, yes, in Germany.
Okay,
So.
I'm like legitimately kind of afraid of them. And I'm afraid to talk about it because I think the internet is listening to me. And if I use that word, it shows me pictures. And I do not want to see pictures, okay, of that ever. All right. So what would I do if I had a tiny invasion or big invasion of tiny?
For those of you that can't see it, it's a really big comment, so I'm not going to put it up on the screen, but it's from Destin, who's joining us right now from Germany, is talking about how being there within the first couple of days, like of being in Germany, they woke up to like a baby spider invasion in their home there in Germany. And like they woke up and there were suddenly like flying webs with baby spiders like everywhere.
So I would get in the car and drive somewhere else. That's what I would do. Like,
so Amy would no longer be living in Germany. She'd be living somewhere else.
I mean, I was like, I'm down with Germany. I had this problem in California where I grew up too. Very specific memories of that because I'm so freaking afraid of it. And I'm all about like embracing your fears, except that one. I don't think I'll do that. Okay, so I would like figure out a way to go
outside. It was all outside, not inside.
Yeah, well, thank God. Yeah. But I would definitely I would go somewhere
else
for my time that day.
An umbrella to protect you. But also, like, can we address the first part of her comment with there too, about how her husband really wants a hot tub, but she is concerned with the upkeep. As a person who has a hot tub, and me now wanting one as well when we move, what is that upkeep like? Is it hard? Is it easy? Is it?
So the first thing to know is that you can't just buy a hot tub and plug that sucker in. Okay, you need to have a spot for it that can hold up the weight because hot tubs are heavy, and you need to especially if you own your own home and intend to sell it. I mean, it depends on the codes where you live. Like Alaska's the Wild West. There are no housing codes. Okay. But there are housing inspectors and there are mortgages. Okay. And so if we were to ever sell this home and we had a hot tub that was not properly installed, that would be a problem. So you really do need a outlet that's created for that wattage and that has a breaker on it. And that's a safety issue. Obviously, water and electricity don't mix very well, right? And so you can imagine a situation where you would need to, hopefully never need to, but would want the ability to do that. And so that's the first. So it's not just plug and play. I'm sorry to report. So actual upkeep, I spend probably about $20 a month on chemicals. I am really good about treating it, but we also use it a lot. So my personal standard is that unless it is prohibitively disgusting outside or I'm actually sick, because getting in the hot tub when you're sick is probably not the best idea. I get in it every day and I'm feeling a little guilty this morning because I decided I ran out of time yesterday and did not use my hot tub on a perfectly normal day. So, then there's an electricity cost. It depends on the price of electricity where you are, but our bill did go up at least $50 a month. Also depends on the weather where you are. So heating it for, I think, logical reasons is more expensive in the winter here.
Yeah.
So upkeep, it's just become a part of my routine. It's not that big of a deal, but there is a price consideration. So you're buying the hot tub. Buying a used hot tub is not a spectacular idea. I tried to do that. Because there are always improvements in how it's heating or how it's maintaining insulation. And so if you get a new one, you're going to it's like buying a new refrigerator, right? Like you don't want a old sauce refrigerator where it's not energy efficient. Same concept with the hot tub. And then it's just keeping on top of it. So.
Yeah. And I just want to say, if you have like there are some portable hot tub things and whatnot, the military will move them for you. You can totally put it as part of your household goods. You can totally request a crate for it. You do have to make sure like it's drained and dried and clean. And all of that same stuff as with other outdoor equipment. But
Yeah,
you
you'll
can,
use a regular hot tub too, right? It just has to be drained and
yeah,
packed.
yeah.
Yeah,
So if you get the hot tub, like if you rent and you get the hot tub and you get it all set up, and your property people allow you to get it and set it up and everything, and something you want to take with you, you can totally take it with you. So don't think you're putting in this big expensive thing at this house and you're not going to be able to reap rewards of it because you're renting.
right.
Take that
And if
thing
you
with
live
you.
somewhere that it's not super cold outside, those
Yeah.
inflatable ones are great. People love those. That's not a solution that I can use here in Alaska because of how it is insulated or not. But I do know people here who maybe shouldn't be, but they are with one of those portable ones in their garage on
Oh.
base. Seems not allowed, but they're doing it anyway. So our secret. I mean, everyone knows that people do this, but we won't name names. But like if you own your own home and you want to have your hot tub in your garage, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
There's always like a little tiny concern that sucker's not gonna it's gonna start leaking, right? It's like a waterbed. Do you remember those in like the 80s?
Yes.
My
Yeah. One of
friend's
my
mom
friends
had a
had a water.
waterbed.
Yeah. It was like the coolest thing. I was like, Mom, I want to go have a sleepover at Lauren's house because she has a water
I
bed.
know. And your mom was like, you are not getting a waterbed because that might leak and then it will, flood our house.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
always
we
get
have
in
the same
trouble.
mom.
Like, you can't jump on the water bed. And it's like, but
They were
it's like a
so
wave. Like,
rude.
it's so cool. I mean,
Yeah.
like, just let us be kids. Like, it's okay.
Can you imagine moving a waterbed? I'm just saying.
I mean, again, you can move water beds. It's in the DTR. It is allowed. But
Of
again,
course,
you
you
have
know
to
that.
drain
You have it
it.
memorized.
You have to drain it. It has to be dry. It has to be packaged properly to ensure that, nothing bad happens. But you can totally, your hot tub, your water bed, it can all go with you. I had so much fun today, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story and encouraging us to get outside and to reap those benefits of being outside, the fresh air, the sunlight, all of that good stuff. Like I said, we're going to get all of the links. We're going to drop in the comments so y'all can go and be able to
100%.
just quickly click to connect to Amy. But thank you for being here today. I greatly appreciate you waking up early to join us because, again, she's in Alaska and it's really, really early there.
Well, yeah, it's this is just my normal day, but I don't usually do this much talking at this particular time. So, if I sounded ridiculous, blame that. Thanks so much for having me. I really, really appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about Humans Outside, talk about a little bit about military.com, commiserate with all of our PCS friends. And out of left field waterbed discussion. Love that. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And everybody watching, join us next week. We are going to be talking about the big discussion happening right now, air tags and other GPS tracking devices for shipments. You guys seen some stories floating around. We're going to have the people involved in those stories on to kind of go through and discuss it. So join us next week. And until then, you all enjoy the rest of your week and we'll see you then. Bye.